is provide individualized support in CHCCCS0015. So this is all about the personal support. So one of our units, I think that was the second one, was about creating, opportunities to teach them new things. This is now, and in that unit, you guys are all sort of answering that unit, like, you're doing personal support. This one is the personal support one. So similar questions, but a different perspective. It's not, you're not teaching them new things. You're actually now taking care of their daily living activities, which is eating and drinking and dressing and showering and things like that. So through this one, chapter 1, we will interpret and clarify our role in implementing the individualized plan and seeking appropriate support for the aspects. Also, when it's outside of our scope of practice, so when we haven't got the training to do something, and also if we don't have the knowledge or the skills, how to get that type of support from somebody. This is going to come up almost in every unit. The individualized care plan, it's where it all pivots around, This is the record of the customer's personal health, personal details, their health details, and their social information that will all be in the personalized care plan. It will give us a direction of care, so we will know. Did I hand these care plans around for you guys? Did you look at it? Yeah. So in this care plans, sorry, I put so many classes, I sometimes forget who I've done what with. When I say give direction for our care, it's things like saying what, to assist with the walk belt, for example. So when you're going, that's normally the first thing I want to know when I go care for somebody is, how mobile are they? What can they do for themselves? And the care plan will tell us that. It will tell you, okay, he lives on one leg. This is Kirsty, she's got she's a Down syndrome person. And it says care needs, some assistance with showering, dressing and grooming. Encourage some level of independence. So always go straight to the care plan to find out, how would I actually help this person? What can they do for themselves? How can I encourage them to still do things for themselves? So it gives us that direction for how to care for them. It shares the care needs, so as well, if there's any extra needs they have, it's absolutely individual. This is not a standard thing that's the same for everyone. Every single person is different, every person's needs are different. And this also needs to be reviewed regularly. I don't know.
How often does it, it could change?
So the care plan is normally for a review every 3 months. And we will be contributing for the review, but it can be reviewed earlier than that. So if somebody's, for instance, you have somebody, they just had a little fall or a little trip over and they've broken the ankle, then obviously their mobility will change straight away. With elderly, you get, they starting to see their incontinence before the next review is around. Every morning you wake them up to see their bed is wet. Then you might have a care review for their continence, and the continence section will change. So you'll get your supervisor, your RN, your EM to tell them, look, we need to maybe look at getting her some pads. But the care plan is also where the funding comes from. So the government looks at the care plan and then they supply the amount of funding that, if it says to assist, the government will make sure that there's enough funds to pay to people's salary for 24-hour care. If it says that person has pads, then the government will supply the pads if that person hasn't got their own funds. Most of the people we look after under NDIS and aged care comes under some sort of a funding with, support. So yes, they would, for instance, you might be feeding somebody and then they suddenly start choking. and you see, oh, you know, they're not doing very well swallowing, then you might need to call the RN or the EN, your supervisor, let them know, my client's not swallowing very well. Then they'll send to speech pathologist and they might change their diet. So those things are for review more regularly than other things, but generally it will be a 3-month review, and I think we're actually doing a review this week. I'm pretty sure it's one of our assessments, to do a little review on one of our clients. So what's your role in implementing this? Unlikely that one person is responsible for everything, so we all contribute to this. Different people complete different tasks, so we might be doing the personal care, somebody else might come in and do some exercises with them, it might be physiotherapist, you know. You might drive them to the physiotherapist or to a gym or something for them to get some exercises or some stretches, or somebody else might be doing the food and, you know, and bring the food around and stop the friction, help with that and with the diets and things like that. Thank you very much, Ross. Thank you so much. You have a blessed day, and I'll catch up with you. I'll let you know about the graduation. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Keep well. So, and we need to be able to interpret our responsibility and clarify our role. So our role would be different to a supervisor's role, to an RN's role. What we're allowed to do would depend on what we've been trained for to do. And our role depends on the qualifications, experience, and the training we have. Some companies, you'll be going out and they'll say, like Don he would say, oh, I'll send you on a buddy shift and then you do medication. Personally, I wouldn't do that. I'm not even allowed to train medication because you need to be an RN or EN to train people in medication. So even though it's a Cert 3, I'm not allowed to do that training. They're very strict, and if the government does, and if there's any problem, because you need to be able to know what the side effects of a medication is. You give a tablet to somebody and suddenly they develop a rash, and you don't know that that's possibly part of a side effect of medication. That person could be dying and you don't know. You think, oh, maybe they just got a hot flash or something, you know. So you need to know what's the side effects of medication. You need to be able to identify if you've given them the medication and it's the wrong medication, to the name of the medication. You need to be able to identify the type of medication when you're giving it to them. You need to be able to know the dosage. You need to be able to know what it's for. You know, if you give them a blood thinner like warfarin, and they need to get tested every 2 weeks or so to see how thick their blood is or how thin their blood is and whether they need the warfarin or not. You need to know those kind of things before you give medication. So it's very important you know what is your scope of practice, what are you allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. And don't attempt to do something that isn't part of your, you know, with the training plan. Be aware of the expectations and the limitations of your role. Quite often we are very limited in what we're allowed to do. Okay, and that's why sometimes people will say this is just a Cert 3. It's just, they say that because we are very limited. Even Ross quite often voiced to me, said, oh, you say that, but I'm not allowed to do that. You know, when you work in like a Kutchepet Lodge, our scope of practice is so little, we never ever get to write in a care plan. We just follow the care plan. Yes, we get to tell the RN or the EN, please change this, or please could you have a look at that, you know, the client needs some changes. But we never get to participate in drawing up this actual care plan. That's not an AIM's job. When you're in the community, you might sit with a family member and a supervisor, and you know, they have a conference and you might have the opportunity to contribute to that. But you know, even talking to family, in some companies you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to have personal conversation. You're not allowed to say to the family, oh, you know, Mum had a real bad night last night. And she was awake all night and she needs pads or she needs some slippers or something. You know, you have to say everything you have to tell your supervisor and they have to tell the family. So there's a huge limit on what we're allowed to do. And saying that at the same time, our scope of practice is so huge because we need to have eyes behind our heads. We need to, you know, be able to identify issues when there are issues. And we need to be able to pass this, you know, tell our supervisor, oh, she's not looking very well. You know, for a few days now, she hasn't eaten. She's feeling warm to touch. Something's not right. We are the ones that sees that first. The supervisors come in once a day, maybe, sometimes not even. Once a week they see that client. So they're not aware of what happens every day, you know. We're the ones that will see the changes first.
If you're a community looking after her, does the supervisor come in like once a week to check on the work?
Yeah, it depends on the company. Some companies have supervisors over certain homes and they have to go around every day. It depends on the abilities of your client. It depends on their behaviors. Some clients would have, you know, somebody, a behavior supervisor that comes around and have a check. If you have a client with an ulcer or sore, they'll probably get a wound nurse coming around once a week. It just all depends. It's all up to us quite often. Quite often you'll be all by yourself.
So if I'm working with someone who wants to put this office and whoever company I'm working with, so okay, I'll go back to Oscar and say, Mrs. Smith has got something.
Yeah.
And then they get someone
To check it, yes, yes. And like Don was saying, on you guys haven't met Don yet. No, I will get him around to come and meet you. He came around before last Friday and he spoke to the other group, like because they're going to be finishing soon. They're finishing in November, and he was saying, you know, he likes having people that just get on and do the job, but he is available. It's just a phone call away. If you're having issues, you can call him and say, oh, I don't know, something's not right, you know, and they come, and then they come. And he's quite hands-on in the, you know, he was saying if go out with a client and suddenly they soil themselves, then he'll say, don't worry, I'll go and clean them up, you know. Even though he's the boss of the company, he still gets involved. Him and his wife are very involved. So it all depends on who you're working for. Oscar and Endeavour and Life Without Barriers, they're really big companies. So they would you probably never see a supervisor. You'll probably just get to call them, you know. Yeah. Sometimes you won't ever see a supervisor. You give them a call. Other companies like Maydak, they have supervisors in the houses. So there's always a supervisor. She might not be on every shift, but she will have a shift in the house. So she might not be on your shift, but she might be on the next shift. And then she'll be looking at the paperwork and she'll have contact with the client to know what's happening in their lives. You might not see her all the time, but she will have a few shifts in a week in that house. And that would be an EN or RN. It depends on the companies. So avoid overstepping your boundaries and ensure you don't fail to meet the expectations. You know, make sure that you know what's expected from you, and you know what normally when you start at a job, they'll tell you this is your role. You know, this is what we would want you to do for this client. So, and if you find something that's outside of your scope of practice and your skills or your job role, if this happens, you need to seek the appropriate support. Straight away, first person you call is your supervisor. Depending on who your supervisor is, yes, sometimes it might be an RN if you're in a facility. Don't ignore things. I have a friend she's ridiculous about it. She calls the RNs and the ENs all the time. And she's busy with the RNs now. And some of the RNs have said to her, we want to be AIN when you are RN one day, because she really bugs them about the slightest, tiniest little things. Sometimes I think she's a bit annoying myself, and I think that was unnecessary, but it's not it's not a bad thing. If you're unsure, then that's the best thing to do. And sometimes the RNs will really love you for it. They will really, because they know it's not good. Because when they hand over to the next RN, they'll say, oh, Mrs. Jones was so sick today. She was hot and we took it in. And she'll look like she's done all of the work. And in the meantime, it's you that's done all the work, you know. And she hands it over like she's got all the knowledge about what's happening. But we were the ones that told her that, you know. So if something needs to be done and you're not qualified, you should find somebody who is. Feelings are, is it feelings? To seek support is a good, feelings able to seek support. I think that's wrong. As a good quality, you know, if you have, what I try to say there is, if you are feeling able to seek support, it's a good quality. It needs to be a form some way. Yeah. If you are confident to find somebody, if you're confident to constantly ask the RN to, it's a very good quality. I always say we are assistant in nurses first. So our first point of contact is the nurses, the RNs or the ENs, which will be a supervisor. Most companies, right at home, they have a CN, which is a clinical nurse, that is a supervisor. So she's an RN, she's a registered nurse. We are assistant to them. Okay, and then second is our client. So we are there to assist the nurse. The nurse tells us, please go and make a urine test. We say yes, we go and do it. The nurse tells us, please go and clean Mr. Jones's bed. He's just been sick. We say yes, we go and do it. So we do what they tell us to do. We are their assistant, you know. And then the client is the one that we are sort of in between the client and the RN. So this will obviously lead to all-round better support. So confirm the individual's plans with the, you know, with the person, with the actual person you are looking after, and with the carers when appropriate. In Australia, when they talk about a carer, the carer is normally like a family member. It would be, you know, if you work with disabled people, it would be a mother or, you know, a guardian. They are referred to as carers. In the UK, they refer to us as carers. So sometimes it's a little confusing, but when they say carers, that's the people who are their guardians, or the people that gives us orders indirectly, you know, other than our companies, RNs and ENs or supervisors. So just a little review again. The care plan is the personalized plan. It's specific to their needs. It includes all the information. It has all the general care requirements. It also has a record of their health. So right on the top of this care plan, it says that she's Down syndrome. She's got arrhythmia. It says that she needs to go for rehabilitation, and it tells you what arrhythmia is. Sometimes it wouldn't. On the other care plan, on this one, it says a type 2 diabetic. It says she's had a stroke. It says monitor the blood sugars every day. It says monitor the BP. So the medical information is normally on top of the care plan as well. And sometimes there's a whole list of diagnosis on the top. And sometimes there's no description for what it is, and you might have to go and Google what does this mean? What's arrhythmia? What does type 2 diabetic mean, you know? Is it the low blood sugar or the high blood sugar? That type of thing. Or there might be a diagnosis, of the mental health or the type of disability, and it might be foreign. You might not have heard that before, and you're like, oh, what does that mean? And then you know that you have to go and find out. That would be, the onus would be back on you to find out, you know, what does that mean? And that would have a record of their health and their social information. down the back here is also social information. It says social human activities, and it has, you know, kind of things like it says Liz attends weekly meetings at the community gardens. Every second Sunday, her daughter Rose picks her up to go to church. And it says the goals: maintain social networking, enjoy interaction with other residents. It says fortnightly visits. You know, it tells you all about what kind of social activities she likes. There's also a section for emotional support. So, you know, that will also be in the care plan. It's all included in their goals. What is their goals? What is their needs? And then, of course, when does it have to be reviewed? That will always be in the bottom of the care plan. It will tell you when last was reviewed, like this, they evaluated, and sometimes it will tell you when it needs to be reviewed again. At Good Shepherd Lodge, because there's 350 residents in total, we have, like in Cumberland, we have 76 residents. I think there's 76 beds. No, I think it might be less now because that was one wing. But say there's about 60 residents, there would only be one RN and one EN, and there will be 6 of us in the afternoon, or there will be 8 of us in the morning. So the RNs and the ENs does the review, so they would have got 2 residents every 2 weeks that they have to then do all the reviews for, and then the next will come around, and then we'll do things like ACP, which is when you're with NDIS, it's something different, but it's a type of review where we review: do they sleep well? Do they still do their own personal care? How's their continence? How do they eat? We actually do like a food and fluid chart where we write down exactly what they've eaten every time they eat, so we can see, you know, exactly, so the government can see how much food do they have to budget for this person. You know, are they small eaters? Are they big eaters? You know, is there any problem with their eating? All of those things goes in the care plan. Confirming this plan details, and always have to confirm when you get to a client, you're coming to them, make sure, especially if you're new, make sure it's the right person. You know, when you go to the hospital, they confirm, is this your date of birth? And then the next person come around, but
Here's your name.
they're constantly confirming, you know, and that is very important that we do that. We want to know we are dealing with the right person, you know. Treat the person as treat them as a person, not just a customer. Take their opinions, thoughts, and consideration. Listen to your clients. They know who they are. They know what they want. It's a little bit harder when you're dealing with people with mental disabilities because they, you know, can't always communicate to you. But you will get to know your clients so well that you'll know what, you know, you'll know. They'll look at you and you'll know, okay, that's what they want. You know, it's like getting to know your children when they're little and they say things to you and you don't know what they're saying, but you know what they want, you know. You sort of learn to understand them. I always say I can speak dementia, you know, because they can speak, they have their own little language and you learn to speak dementia, you know, when you work with the client. Because they have their own way, you know, they'll come to you and you'll learn all these little tricks of the trade. You'll get to know your clients very well.
I just guess.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Sometimes it is a bit like that, you know, it's a bit of a stab in the dark and sometimes you get it. And, yeah, and try to get a full understanding of who's your clients and who they are. Get to, like Ross was saying, you know, he try to get to know his clients straight away. Where, you know, where did you go to school? Where did you work? Who was, you know, who's your family? And you get to know who they are. And then important thing to include them in all, you know, all the care. That's their personalized care, their needs, their likes, their dislikes, their strengths. And we're sharing this with people we're working with, their sufficient support, and they support their independence. And we're also thinking about their choices and access to service, their funding, the organization. So these are all things that we have to know and we have to. So it's not just the three. I always say, I'm giving you a license to care for people. That's big. Anyone, anywhere, touched in the place where we're going to be touched, they will be sued. Anyone, anywhere, get as close to anyone as we're getting to them can get sued and will be, of course, called abusers or, sexual abusers, people that are taking advantage. We're going very close and personal to people. We need to know what we're doing. We need to know our limits. We need to know our rights. We need to confirm with the clients that that is what they want. Our responsibility is so massive that I get angry with people saying this is just a CHCCCS, because we have such a massive responsibility to do the right thing all the time, that you need to know that you are doing the right thing. You need to know that you are at the right place, because you can tarnish your own name for the rest of your life. You can land up on 7 News tonight being somebody that is, named and shamed. You don't want to be there. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you're at the right place and you know what your responsibility is. So get to know who are the people you're working with, who's their doctor, who's their family, who's the people you can rely on to know, are we doing the right thing? We are working in a team, not just in a team with each other, we're also working in a team with other healthcare professionals. The doctor is part of our team. At Good Shepherd, as Valmay would quite often say, Dr. What's her name? I've got her name now. But we have a house doctor at Good Shepherd. She's got so many clients. But anyway, she's so good. She comes into the office and she sits down and she talks to the AINs because she knows they're part of the team. And she will walk around the house and then she'll stop at a client and you're busy there feeding the client and she'll ask us, how's that client going? Because she knows that we the first point of contact. I always say we're the first responders. We so many things that is so important. If you think about first responders going out on the highway, being the first ones having to see how, heart attacks and accidents and things, we are that. We're the one that's going to walk into the room and find them on the floor, blood streaming everywhere. We need to know how to act. We are the ones that are going to walk into the room, finding them in a, emotional state. We need to know how to react. We need to know, we need to be equipped to know. And if we don't, we need to know where to find the answers, And that's a great responsibility we have. So the support services we are providing is home caring. We also transition support. So we might be taking them places, or we might be in a like a respite center where people are they're coming from the hospital and they come to the respite center. They need to get some rehabilitation. They're getting, they've had a massive knee operation and you're helping them to get their care needs done and, get showered in the morning, get dressed and help them get better. And the physiotherapists come around every day to do their needs. You might be in that situation. You might be in a situation where you're in a respite center, somebody's waiting to go into a home, and they've got so many behaviors. And when you're in a respite center, a lot of documentation will take place because they're trying to figure out where are we going to place this person from now on? Where are they going? Are they going to a high care unit? Are they going medium care? Can they go back into their own home again? So we might be in a situation. Yeah.
But the doctor has been, all the places that we know, because we want to check it out. To see what to do with mum. My mum said she never wanted to go to the program. It's an old hospital. Clean that is, don't get me wrong, but it's so old and dingy. It's just creepy. And she's got a friend. Anyway, we went to all of them. And in the end, the doctor that she was dealing with, she said, no, you have to go to the hospital, which is and yeah, but she never made it. The amount of paperwork they fill out and where to put her, you know.
There's a lot of assessments, and you see, because quite often, which is really amazing thing about Australia, is that we have the social support, we have a social funding, you know, to help us care for our family. But because that funding comes from the government, they want to know where the money goes, you know. Otherwise, they sell your house. You know, they sell your house, they use that money first. But still, even if they do that, they need to be accountable into knowing that when they dish those monies out to companies caring for people, that they actually are using the funds correctly, you know, that it's not just, you know, going somewhere in somebody's pocket, but it's actually really used for that person's care. There's always a huge factor of accountability. And we are the first accountants. We have to give accountability for, you know, how many pads are we using? You'll get shouted at by your RN or your EN if you use too many pads for somebody that's not allocated. You know, if you go and grab a pad from somebody else because your client is, you know, incontinent, you get into trouble, you know. So you know what I always do, and I probably shouldn't be advocating this out on the on the internet, but you know what I always do? If I have clients that haven't used the aids that was allocated for the day, I have a little stockpile. I have a secret stash. You know, it's not always that's not always advisable. The nurses hate that if they come in a room and they see there's anything stashed anywhere. But if you don't use something, because they allocate, say, 3 pads a day per person, but that person today only used 1, and there's 2. The problem is when somebody starts getting incontinent, it's most probably going to get worse. So it's not going to get better. So when you do a continence assessment and you say, oh, they need 2 pads a day, they're probably going to need 3 in a month's time. And then the next review is only in 3 months' time. So that's the one review where you have to, I don't want to say lie, but you have to make it a little bit worse than what it is. Because so that you have supply, so that there's absolutely depends on how regularly they go to the toilet. Depends on what they ate yesterday. You know, it might happen. Yeah, it all changes all the time. So it's a really hard one. I always laugh at my secret stash, but I always have a bit of secret stash somewhere. You know, I hide low. Most people hide high. The bottom drawer. It's quite handy. You know, but yeah, it's really hard. You need to be accountable. You need to say, well, you're not going to wear the pad, are you? You know, it's not for yourself. It's for the client, you know, and it's still for them. But then also, yes, we always get a bit of extra supply. You can go and draw on the extra supply if your client is incontinent more often, but you have to be accountable by writing it down and saying she needed more today than usual, so that they can start looking at that. And if it becomes like that, you have to tell your RN, I think we need to do another continence assessment. She seemed to be, you know, a lot more wet than what she used to. So it's a little bit hard. It's a little different when you have disabled people. Obviously, you know, that's not such a big issue with them, but with aged care, that becomes a bit of a, you know, sort of a real important thing. Yeah, so we also have to be educated, and we need to be able to know who's the professionals that we have to go on. Then there's the behavior support. We've done behavior support, have we? No. 003, did we do behavior support? No, not yet. So we'll do behavior support, and that is a huge support for people with disability, is trying to manage their behaviors, trying to find ways to meet their needs without them landing up getting aggressive or, freaking out in a place or doing something. That is a huge support. We have a whole unit on behavior support. So it's all, it's very important for people with disability. Their healthcare planning, their medical support, crisis support, so all the services. I've just made a little summary here from all the services and the providers, and then how often do we have to review that? Monthly, 3 monthly, sometimes with behavior plans, it gets reviewed within 2 weeks. With social support, we review the social, like we did the social last week, didn't we? When did we do the social support? Oh, we haven't done that either. No. With the social support, we can be reviewing it more often. So if you have taken somebody, they decided, okay, I would like to play guitar and I would like to go and swim, and you start taking them to the guitar lessons and do the swimming every week. On a Monday they go swimming, and on Wednesday and on Friday, and Tuesday they go guitar. Some of these people are so busy. Hey? Some of these disabled people are all over the place all the time. And they decide, no, I don't want to do this anymore. Or they're a bit compulsive, and you're taking them to the gym. They decide, I want to lose weight and I want to go to the gym. You take them to the gym and they overdo it. And they start vomiting after the exercise. And then the gym instructor comes to you and says to you, I don't think this is the right exercise for this person. Then you need to go back to the person and say, can we slow down a little bit? Maybe we try the walking group. We'll go walking with that. They walk every morning, and cane lanes, before cane lanes open, they walk through cane lanes. And you take them on the walking group, you make the exercise a bit less and offer them something else, because whatever they've been doing is too much. So that means that review happens quicker. It will happen like within after the first exercise. Obviously, everything goes through the supervisor, and with NDIS funding, you have to get approval first. And with Don, he says if the client wants to do it, the client can do it, and then he'll sort the funding out later. But other companies want you to get the okay from NDIS first before you change something. So it can be a bit tricky as well. So determining the support needs, ensure that the person are aware of their rights and their complaint procedures. They receive the appropriate relevant care to their needs. They are treated with respect and dignity. They live in privacy, free from abuse or neglect. They're not victimized or discriminated against. They make their own decisions and they are respected. They're treated as an individual. They have access in equality, access. They're able to get into a building. They're able to read the books they want to, that type of thing. They can make a complaint and they can withdraw from the service. They don't have to do something if they don't want to. And sometimes especially in the community, these community organizers or supervisors sometimes are so goal orientated. And they're so old school with goals that they're going to pressure you with goals for your client. We need to teach our client how to cook their own food. And you are having an uphill battle all the way, and you're not getting anywhere with it. And they're so determined, but the client doesn't want. And it just creates behaviors, it just makes that client freaking out at you. And you're the one that has to face that, you're the one that has to stand in front of that client while they're shouting at you, I don't want to do that, or abusing you. They need to understand that it's what the client wants. It's fair and fine to say we are trying to get something done and we are doing everything within our strength to do it according to their goals, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes there's no answer for it, you know. Yes, old Ross has got his plan with his client and he wants his client to do that, but sometimes the client just doesn't want to. They doesn't want to, you know. And I'm definitely not going to be forced. That's my personality. I'm not going to be forced. I am not there to be abused. And if I see this client going to freak out at me because I'm forcing him to do something, I'm sorry. I'm going to stay back and say, I'm sorry. You do whatever you want. You know, it is an individual. He has his rights. He can make his decisions. If he's strict and he's strong and you have to, you know, you can be a bit tough, then that's, you know, that's your prerogative. You're the one that's going to cop it. So, you know, we always have to make sure that we understand that behaviors, the root of most behaviors, 99% of behaviors come from people getting forced to do something they don't want to do. You think of a 2-year-old also. You, the minute you make them do something they don't want to do, they scream and shout at you. You know? So why put yourself in that situation in the first place? And secondly, why provoking your client, you know, to become like that? Try to please them, try to get them to do things freely. Yes, sometimes we have to be clever. Sometimes you have to be a bit cunning, you know, and come with an angle, you know. Like he says, oh, take him now. Okay, well, we'll go and fish, but you have to walk a mile, you know. That's fine. That's fine. That's perfectly fine, as long as he thinks he wanted to do that. And there was no behaviors in the process. You are the winner, you know. So you just sometimes you have to be sort of ahead of it, you know. So your customer have the right to receive appropriate care relevant to their needs, be treated with respect and dignity, live with privacy, free from abuse, not be victimized or discriminated, make their own decisions, be treated as an individual, have access and equality, make a complaint, and withdraw from service at any time. Complaint procedures. It's different from company to company, but basically, you know, most of the time there will be sort of a forum that they can, paper that they can write and, you know, do some feedback. When you finish with this course, you have to tick all the boxes on how good of a trainer I was, you know. What did Ross say? Oh, he didn't give me strong agree all the way. I got some. He just agreed with it. So, you know, then you give some feedback and the company looks at that and, you know, and they decide that. So, you know, that's the support, and you can have a little say about it, and the clients gets that opportunity to do that as well. And you know, like everywhere else, they have feedback these days. It's very important to know where we're sitting at. There's complaint bodies, know about that. I'm not going to go into detail, but you know, if you work for NDIS, obviously you can go and complain with NDIS. I can send you this one again. The Royal Commission ran last year for HQ. They've closed, they finished now, but there is still a Royal Commission running for disability care. So they have probably shut down a little bit this year with COVID and all that, but I'm sure they're going to pick up again and finish the investigation, looking at, you know, care and how care is provided, and who's the care providers, and is it up to date, and do they have the right support and all of that? So they really investigate that. And then they draw up a new care standard to say this is, you know, how we will do it. So the Royal Commission for Disability Care has a web page where you can go in and you can also go and put complaints in. If you work for a company and you see they are drawing funds and it doesn't come to the client, then you have to go there straight away. If you see they're not putting the client's needs first and the client's getting neglected, you know, you can go there, you can go make a complaint. And, you know, and we have the right to make a complaint. And this is a type of advocacy service we offer our clients, is going to complain on their behalf, you know. Somebody's not treating them right. Chapter 1.4, work with the person to identify actions and activities that support the individualized plan and promote the person's independence and right to make informed decisions. So with ACAT is the aged care assessment. It's one of your questions somewhere, I think, as well. ACAT is basically, like I said, the assessments we do ever so now and then to find out what type of funding do they need, you know? How much are they eating? How much pads do they need? All of that. Enduring power of attorney is the person that makes decisions on behalf of that person. They are the ones that, you know, it might be a child or it might be a parent if you have a disabled person, or if they misuse this person's funds and they've been complained about it, it might go through the what's it called? But anyway, the court where you go and apply for funds and, you know, care for your person, for the person you're caring for. So gathering information, look at the risk, track records are kept, all the writing. Remember, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. It's always the most important thing. We write down everything that we do for somebody. And work with the customer to identify the activities, and supports can be referenced to all these different type of services. Promote the independence. This is really, really important. Always try to encourage your clients to do as much as they can for themselves. You know, it's I know you get some of your old school clients that think, oh, you just want them to do it because you don't want to do it. I tell you what, it's far easier to do it yourself than to wait for them or to nag at them to do something. You know, it is far easier. But yeah, if you're clever and, you know, and you can be sort of more creative about it, to get them to actually do their own thing, you know, like Ross is fighting that battle to get that lawn mowed, you know. Yes, it is about them wanting to be independent, you know, and why have people then caring for them all the time if they can be independent? There was this reality show they had, like Big Brother in the UK. I need to actually still find that show. And they put a bunch of old people together in a home, and they withdrew the support and they left them by themselves. And, you know, and within a week or two, they started doing things for themselves that everyone was doing for them. They started, you know, tying their own shoes, making their own cups of tea because there was no one to do it for them. So, and quite often, and especially in aged care, it happens that we do everything for them because it's just so much quicker. Like Ross was saying, you know, we have to breathe deeply and slow down because they, you know, sometimes take so long to actually get to do something that it would have been far quicker for us to do it. So, but independence is a very important attribute. It's essential to promote their independence, encourage them to do as much as possible for themselves, help them improve their quality of life. You know, it will give them purpose. And what is life if we do not have purpose? You know, if we're not something to make us feel valuable, you know, you feel sort of worthless, really, if you don't have purpose. Dignity and pride and dignity, you know, just that fact of taking the pride and, you know, caring for yourself, getting up, dressing yourself nicely, you know, putting a bit of makeup on. My grandma always used to say, put some lipstick on if you don't feel well. You know, it just makes a difference. It just makes you feel a little bit more confident, you know, to go out. Help them in a way that they're comfortable. You know, obviously they need to be happy with whatever the independence you're promoting with them. You don't want to promoting independence to create a situation that's not promoting independence, you know, to whichever level they're comfortable with. And it will depend on that client, what kind of independence they want to achieve. Their right to make decisions, what they want to wear, you know. I always give them only two choices. Instead of like opening the cupboard and say, oh, what do you want to wear today? You know, and then, oh, I don't care, you know, just whatever. just pull two things out and say, do you want to wear this or do you want to wear that? You know? Or what color? Do you want to wear red or blue? Give them a choice, but limit the choice, because that just makes the job a little bit easier. And as well as it gives them that pride and dignity to actually make a decision, you know. What do you want? Who do you want to talk to? What activities do you want to do? Do you want to go in the garden, or shall we, you know, always have sort of two choices in your pocket. Do you want to go for a walk at the botanical gardens, or do you want to go for a cup of tea in town? I mean, you can stop a little, oh, there's no parking, and you stop like half a mile away, you know, and let them walk to the tea shop, you know, so they still get to go the walk, but you're just a little bit, you know, a little bit cunning about it, a little bit of a step in ahead of it until they catch up on you. And yeah. Chapter 1.5, prepare for support activities according to the individualized care plan, preferences and organization policies and procedures. Protocols, so it's always very important, and this keeps coming up, the organization's policies and procedures. You know, it's just every company is different. Every care provider has their own, you know, sort of what they deem more important, you know, so prepare to support them in that way. Overcome barriers, there is the disability access and inclusion, there might be therapy needed, equipment, accommodation, advocacy, those are all type of barriers. And I think we'll stop and have a quick break before we start with chapter 2. If that's okay, I'm hungry. So in chapter 2, 2.2 is the care standards. This chapter 2.1 is still conducting an exchange with the person in a manner that develops trust. So you know how to gain trust with somebody, you know, just get to know them. That's it. Like building a friendship, really. Chapter 2.2 is providing support according to individualized plan and the person's preferences and strengths, policies and procedures. So in your book, it starts off with aged care standards. Now these standards were reviewed last year in September. It came out. 1st of July 2019 it came out. But in September it was enforced. So with the new standards, the basis of it is that the customer is in the center of it, you know. So the customer's dignity and choices. Did we do some of the disability standards last week? Was it the other group I did with? There was 12. Yes, we did some of the standards, but we referred to it, the 12 standards. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, so and remember, some of the standards were overlapping. Some of the disability standards was overlapping. So the aged care standards are a little bit less. There's only 8 of them. But the basis of it is, and I think the disability standards is going to look very similar to this when it does come up, is that it has the customer's dignity and choice in the middle. And then it goes ongoing assessments and planning. And it goes 3, personal care, clinical care, 4, services and support for daily living, 5, organization, service in service environment, 6, feedback and complaints, 7, human resources, and 8, organization governance. So with the main thing to sort of understand about it, because dignity choice sit in the middle, when there's any auditing of a service, they go back to these standards and they see whether we provide it, if we fulfill their needs in all of the standards. And if we fail 2 standards, we fail the you know, the checkup, or the what did I just call it? You know, when the government comes and see if an organization is doing, you know, the auditing. So if we fail 2 standards, we fail the audit. That means that if you fail one of these, you already failed two because your customer's choice is in the middle. So if you fail any of the outside ones, you automatically fail two. Yeah. And if you fail the middle one, you basically fail all the others. So it's not hard to fail. It means you really have to uphold the standards with high regard. And that it, you know, the government has closed down old age homes around the country. Last year there was a few in the news where they closed down ones because Bupa was one of them that had a few homes that they've actually closed down because they failed some of these standards. So that when you, well, I'm going to go through all the standards now. So if you want to go look at the standards, the new standards is on internet there. But the first standard, I have a little video explaining the standards from, this is from the government's website, explaining the standards. So I'm going to let them do the introduction for it, and then I don't think they were going to say. And it just gives you a nice little overview of it. I should download this one also. Some of the, I have this, which is a safe zone. And when you do the safe zone, you can download some, probably can't download this one anyway, because it's from the government's. Oh, the resource is not available. Did that take that off? Oh, there it is. Yeah, probably just took a while. No. I can't download this one anyways.
Not so long ago, the older people we support were known as care recipients. These days, they're known as consumers. And when it comes to consumers and what they want in their aged care providers, they're now very much in control of their own destiny. It's all part of the aged care quality standards, with a greater emphasis on quality, safety, and choice to ensure improved outcomes for consumers.
You may recognize his face. He's the Minister of Aged Care, I think.
Hi, how can I help you?
I am Jonathan Clark, and this is their treatment. We're from the Aged Care Quality and Safety. You can see the person in charge, please.
Of course, I'll just call our manager. Won't be too long. You could just sign in, please. Is this one of the unannounced reaccreditation site audit? Yes, it does.
The Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission is an Australian government body. Its role is to protect and enhance the safety, health, well-being and quality of life of people receiving aged care.
Okay, right, they're there now. Good. Sign in and I'll be down shortly. Thanks, Terry. Well, the assessors from the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission are in reception. I'll go and meet them now.
Oh, sorry.
And I'll see you in the Okay, thanks, Jane.
The Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission independently accredits residential aged care services, conducts quality reviews of home services, and monitors compliance against the aged care quality standards. The system is designed to ensure high quality care, services, and outcomes for consumers at all times.
Good morning. I'm Barbara. I'm the General Manager and the person in charge here.
I'm Jonathan Clark, and this is my colleague, Chris. We're from the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission. I'll do a rehabilitation audit.
As quality assessors, we have certain powers under Part 8 of the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission Act in relation to this audit. These powers cover our entry to the premises and access to documents and information. We are seeking your consent to enter the premises. Use arbitrary or informed consent at any time. In saying that, I must also remind you about your responsibility under the Aged Care Act to cooperate with a person exercising powers under Part 8 of the Commission Act. Do we have your consent to other places? Of course. Let's go to a meeting room to discuss.
The aged care quality standards are a framework to ensure better quality and safety. It's been designed to protect consumers by focusing on consumer outcomes. Give consumers and their families or carers a clear understanding of what to expect from their service provider. Simplify regulations for service providers who offer more than one type of service. And promote high quality, innovative services and continuous improvement. So the standards apply to all care services, so that includes residential care, home care, flexible care, and the Commonwealth Home Support Program. And the standards that apply depend on what kind of services they provide, and that can be different from organisation to organisation. Staff, all the way from governing bodies through to the frontline workforce, they all have a role to play. Each one has a different way to contribute to understanding of the standards, what it means to their job, as well as how to improve the service. Nice materials are prepared for providers to help them understand the standards, as well as the requirements that they have at each standard. It explains the intent behind the standards, examples of how you might go about complying with the requirements, the type of evidence that we might look for to see if they can comply. There's also legislation and resources, further information, as well as case studies. The guidance material is not a legal document. It doesn't form part of the quality standards, but it is there to help providers understand standards and to offer comply. There are plenty of questions that actually help you as a service provider think about the kind of services you provide and check yourself against the standards and requirements to see how you track them. Assessors will be looking to see that the standards and requirements are understood in the service, that they're being applied in practice, and that the service monitors their own performance, and that there's a process for continuous improvement. There are 8 aged care quality standards. Each standard has a consumer outcome, a statement that reflects the expectation of the organisation, and the requirement the organisation must demonstrate to prove that the standard has been met. Standard 1 is consumer dignity and choice.
I am interested with the dignity and respect. I can maintain my identity. I can make informed choices about my care and services and live the life I choose.
Standard 1 is a foundation standard. It reflects 7 important concepts: dignity and respect, identity, culture and diversity, cultural safety, choice, dignity at risk, information, and personal privacy. These concepts recognise the importance of a consumer's sense of self and are essential in fostering social inclusion, health, and well-being.
Would you have something for today's lecture?
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you very much. Oh, I really feel like something vegetarian today. Ah, I can see the plants. Mine on the furrows. Are in jam here.
Oh, I like it too. Did you speak on that?
Quando ero ragazzino in Puglia vedevamo sempre e lei coltivava le sue melanzane, pomodori, mezzo tutto.
Sono meraviglioso. Cos'altro ti è piaciuto cucinare con lei?
I dolci. Lei preparava dei dolci meravigliosi, di sporco. Ah, delle torte meravigliose.
Buonissimo. Perché potremmo chiedere a chef se riuscirà a farlo bene questi giorni? Va bene? Perché non andiamo a dirlo a lei?
Standard 2 is ongoing assessment and planning with consumers. I am a partner in ongoing assessment and planning that helps me get the care and services I need for my health and welfare. For Standard 2, organisations need to plan care and services in partnership with the consumer that meet each individual's needs, goals and preferences and optimise their health and well-being. This includes advanced care planning. Regular reviews should be conducted in order to respond to the consumer's changing needs and to
You mentioned that you wanted to increase the number of days that you visit.
Yes, I just don't feel that I'm able to manage my own as well anymore.
So what days would you like to become?
Monday's good. I'd like a little help on Wednesdays as well.
All right. Was that the day you wanted a little bit of extra help with your shopping?
That would be great. Just finding it a little bit hard on my own. So, with more help would be lovely.
All right, well, we'll make sure you get the help you need, okay? So the garden's looking lovely.
Standard 3 is personal care and clinical care.
I give personal care, clinical care, or both personal care and clinical care that is safe and right for me.
For Standard 3, organisations must demonstrate best practice through the delivery of safe, effective and quality personal and clinical care. This includes effectively managing and minimising risks that are high impact, high prevalence or infection related. Organisations must also ensure timely and appropriate referrals and deliver safe and effective personal and clinical care that is tailored to the consumer's needs and optimises their health and well-being.
Oh, this is really lovely. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? It's a new product that's just come out and it may help. Now, research not so good. Should we decide? Oh yes, I'll try anything that could help.
Standard 4 is services and support for daily living.
I get the services and supports for daily living that are important for my health and well-being and that enable me to do the things I want to do.
Standard 4 covers a wide range of options that aim to support consumers to live as independently as possible and enjoy their lives. It includes things like quantity and quality of food, emotional, spiritual, and psychological well-being, social and personal relationships, safe, clean, and well-maintained equipment, domestic assistance, home maintenance, and transport. The standard is also about making sure that consumers feel socially connected, can have relationships they choose, control over their lives, privacy, and are able to control.
Just the end of them? Yes, that's Joey, and see my daughter. We're off to Joe today. Actually, we're going to make mine a double shot.
Oh, I see. Must get an idea then. Standard 5 is the organisation's service environment.
I feel I belong and I am safe and comfortable in the organization's service environment.
Standard 5 applies to the physical service environment through which care and services are delivered, but this does not include the individual private home where in-home services are provided. The environment, as well as the furniture and equipment, must be safe, comfortable, and promote the consumer's independence, ability, and enjoyment. The design, accessibility, and layout of the service environment should encourage a sense of belonging for consumers and enable them to move freely both indoors and outdoors.
Hello.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
How are you today?
Lovely, thank you. My daughter and my granddaughter are coming to see you. And they're bringing in a puppy.
Oh, how nice. Must be so excited.
Oh, I'm very excited.
What's the name of the puppy?
Oh, the puppy's name is Charlie.
Standard 6 is feedback and complaints.
I feel safe and encouraged and supported to give feedback and make complaints. I am engaged in processes to address my feedback and effective actions.
For Standard 6, the organisation should encourage and support consumers, carers, family families and others to provide feedback and make complaints. Consumers should be made aware and have access to the advocacy and language services available to them. The system for resolving complaints must be accessible, confidential, prompt, and fair. And when things go wrong, an open disclosure process must be used. Feedback and complaints should inform how the organisation improves the delivery of care and services.
Hi, Andrew. It's Chelsea, actually. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, on that again. Would you please make sure everything that's okay with me during this day?
Yeah, it's fine. So, choose a good day. You know, well,
Thank you for telling me, Andrew. I'll talk to Morgan. Please feel free to let us as soon as possible. That way we can get into the other issues before we get to the late.
okay. Thanks for that.
Thanks. Bye.
Standard 7 is human resources.
Under quality care and services, come on in. People from knowledgeable, helpful, and care.
The standard reflects 4 key workforce concepts: sufficiency, attributes, attitude and performance, organisational support, and assessment, monitoring and review. Standard 7 supports all of the other quality standards by ensuring that an organisation's workforce is adequately skilled and qualified to deliver safe, respectful and quality care and services to consumers.
I've got a medication. Is it okay for you to today? She's assessing my medication. Yes, of course. How are you today? I would have paid my name this morning. It wasn't too bad, but I didn't work. Yeah. So what's this going? Parenting, but how people pay me. Next question. You're very welcome. Right, come on for a little bit later just to take the person. What you give you a sleep for?
Standard 8 is organisational governance.
I am confident the organization is well run. I can partner in improving the delivery of care and services.
To meet Standard 8, the organisation's governing body must be accountable for the delivery of safe, quality care and services. Effective organisation-wide governance systems should be in place. This includes risk management, the ability to identify and respond to instances of abuse or neglect, minimising the use of restraints, open disclosure, and antimicrobial stewardship. Consumers should be invited to provide input in the development, delivery, and evaluation of care and services to ensure that they enjoy a quality experience.
We're receiving a number of feedback forms regarding the new policy preventing visitors from outside the facility. Some of the residents have indicated that their lives are ruined because of this. And family members are disappointed that they can't contribute to the well-being of their loved ones.
Well, it's a difficult one. Diet restrictions in Turkey is a real concern. Is it the policy camera? It's had a big impact on the well-being of the residents, much greater than we anticipated. Then let's find a way to lift the ban and implement a risk management process, protect those at risk, but still support those who enjoy food that's meaningful to them. We'll need to provide some education to visitors on food safety and storage, and we need to support our staff to help work with visitors and turn this forward.
Standard itself, as you approach, to read each one of them, you'll see that heart of the standard, and when you do your own practice, determine yourself to that heart of our own practice. Residential care services are accredited by the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission. This is usual for periods of up to 3 years. About 7 months before their accreditation period ends, they receive a reminder notice advising them to apply for re-accreditation.
When a service provider applies for reaccreditation, they also need to submit a self-assessment. The self-assessment tool demonstrates how they believe they meet the aged care quality standard.
Providers can use a self-assessment template. They have their own one that they already use. We also supply a template on our website that you can use as well to help them along. And as well as you show that you're reflected upon your own performance and demonstrate that you understood standards and where you're at, and that's what we do. And about site audits, so that we ensure that when we see a service, you see it like it is every day of the year.
When the site audit is being done, the service provider is provided with a notice and a system. This will inform consumers and their nominated representatives that a site audit is going to occur. We also provide information to providers about how to contact the Commission should a consumer or their representative wish to make contact with us prior to the site audit commence. Reaccreditation audits occur unannounced across residential aged care services. This ensures that quality standards are maintained at all times across all services, and provides us with greater confidence that aged care is being delivered at high quality.
Okay, well, the purpose of the audit is to assess your service performance against the aged care quality standard. We're going to be on site for the next 3 days, speaking with consumers and their representatives, as well as staff who follow themselves. As part of that plan, we have considered the self-assessment information to be provided as part of your application for the accreditation.
We'll be interviewing at least 10% of consumers or their representatives to understand their experience with care. We'll also be able to speak to the consumers or their representatives who are very advised who they like to speak to us. Regarding interviewing staff, we'll be considering work practices and the service environment. We will also undertake structured observations of care, and we'll also be considering your systems, processes, and documentation. That all sounds fine. We're happy to direct you where you need to go, but where would you like to start?
Thanks, Barbara. Can we start by interviewing some of your consumers?
Okay. Well, the first thing I'll need to do is inform our residents and their representatives that you'll be here for the next 3 days and let them know what you'll be doing. I can do that right away. And Jane, would you mind checking to see if any of our residents have already requested interviews?
Absolutely.
And we'll also let you know if you receive any further requests.
Thanks so much.
I'll just let you know we will meet with you at the end of each day to provide an update on our progress. At the end of the audit, we'll provide feedback on key issues. This will reflect any matters that we raise with you during the course of the next 3 days.
Well, that all sounds fine. If there's anything you need while you're here, please let us know.
Shall we get started then?
Hello, I'm Beth Sheehan from the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission. Would you mind if I ask just a few balance up to before?
Oh, that's okay.
What do you think about the food here? Do you like what's on the menu?
Really great. I'm really happy with the choices available.
And what do you think of the serving sizes?
Oh, there's something saying in the place of dinner is there's always enough food that might take the issue.
What are some of your favourites?
Well, mostly Italian, and you can do everything. Okay. So, how would you describe the cleanliness? Oh, it's been quite good now.
Well, actually, we did have a problem with Dad's bathroom a few months ago, so I did make a complaint to the manager. To their credit, they did get onto it straight away. It's been fantastic ever since.
Can you give me a few more details?
Yes, we don't say what's possible.
Staff will be interviewed during assessment by the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission. It can be helpful to prepare for these interviews, as assessors may ask a range of questions about any of the applicable standards.
What happens when you recognise there is a risk to the health, safety and well-being of your students?
Well, with any risk, we have communicated immediately to the appropriate staff members
so we can make the necessary improvements. Can you give me an example of that? Yes. The staff reported that after showering the resident, that the water wasn't draining properly out of the shower. This was clearly a hazard. The immediate control measure was to mop up the floor so the residents could still use the bathroom. However, we realised that it wasn't just the shower drainage problem, but an issue with the flooring. So we spoke to the resident as well as her family, and we were able to move her to another room so she could still enjoy her private bathroom. That's great. And how do you communicate the findings of this assessment? If it's urgent, we communicate verbally straight away to the appropriate person to ensure that it is rectified properly. Then we follow it up in writing. If the risk isn't urgent, we complete a hazard form and follow it up with our health and safety team. We use our risk management assessments to help us with this process. There's also a strong link to our continuous improvement plan. I'll show this to you so I can give you a specific example. Yes, amazing.
So these are simple, really popular. Can you tell me about these? Yeah, well, they're based on feedback we receive from our monthly resident food meeting. These meetings are useful as residents like contributing ideas, providing feedback, and that's what keeps staff moving up there.
That's great. But let's talk about staff training now. When was the last time you had training?
Probably about 3 weeks ago now. It was a refresher course on food safety. I can't tell you the exact date off the top of my head, but it's the records here.
So Barbara, just to give you an update of where we're at, we've done interviews with some consumers, family members and staff.
We've also been observing staff practice. They've been very willing to tell us what they do here, how they work with consumers to support them.
That's great.
We'll now have a bit of a chat and have a look at your documentation, how your professional development and training programs are evaluated.
Sure.
And then we'll look at how your staff are supported to carry out their work.
There's a different assessment process for home services called a quality review. Quality reviews take place every 1 to 3 years. Arrangements for the visit are usually discussed on the phone, including plans for interviews and the documentation which will be required. However, the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission may complete a quality review without notice if they think that the service is not meeting standards. Well, next speaking. Yes? Oh, yes. That sounds good. Home service providers are notified in writing of the date of the planned site visit. They are also provided with information to tell consumers and their nominated representatives about the visit. We look forward to seeing you on the 5th. Thanks so much. Right. The service provider will be required to provide a self-assessment to the assessors during the quality review. They may wish to use the self-assessment template provided by the Commission. Self-assessment is usually carried out by management teams, but it should also involve staff, consumers, and their representatives. We all have a role to play in the self-assessment process, and including our clients and their families is really important in this process. For one thing, it enables us to review our effectiveness, but we can also identify where we might have gaps.
And communicating that with the having on the contract there enables us to make improvements to our services.
Well, that's right, Jill. So on the 5th, we'll expect a visit from the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission. We'll need to demonstrate that we understand our obligations and monitor how we deliver them and what that means for the consumers in terms of outcomes. And I can't emphasize enough the continuous improvement.
We also need to show how we can modify our care and services to meet the changing needs.
Oh,
Let's get this go through pretty quickly.
sounds like a plan. By the way, I just can't tell you how useful it's been having an extra day to myself. It's so handy getting some help with that stuff.
Great, I'm so pleased.
The home service provider must take reasonable steps to tell consumers and their nominated representatives about the site visit for the quality review representatives are also able to contact the Commission prior to the quality review to provide feedback on their experience of the care and services they receive. Consumers will also be given the opportunity to speak to assessors. Assessors may also seek to contact consumers or their representatives during a quality review.
Right. Well, that's pretty clear. And tell me, have you ever had any problems with your customer service?
One thing that was quite nice, but they're very apologetic, that's what was wrong.
Okay. And tell me, are you satisfied with the service at the time?
I'm very happy with the service. It's marvelous.
Alright, it's always good to hear. Now, can you give me an example of how you support consumers to have choice of control?
Yes, absolutely. So we always ask our clients what their goals are and what matters to them. So we can tailor our services to ensure that we're meeting their needs and supporting them to live the life they choose.
Right. Every site audit or quality review ends with an exit meeting. The exit meeting is held on the final day of the site audit or quality review with the person in charge of the service or home service provider.
Is there any further information you'd like to provide to this afternoon?
I think we're just about finished. We'll be able to provide you a summary of our key issues shortly.
This is an opportunity to discuss key issues resulting from the audit or quality review. Within 7 days, the provider will be given a report by the Commission after the exit meeting. For residential care facilities, the report is known as a site audit report. For home services, the report is known as an interim quality review report. Both reports include recommendations against each standard and whether each requirement has been demonstrated adequately. Providers then have 14 days to respond to any of the information in the reports.
And there's a couple of other ones that I thought would be good. Some need some work. This one here. I need to respond to this one.
A final reaccreditation decision will take into account the audit report, any response to it, and any other relevant information. A home service provider's final quality review report will be received within 20 days of the interim report. This will take into account any responses to the interim report. But what happens if a service provider doesn't meet the standards?
Where a service provider doesn't meet the standards, the approach is same for both home services and accredited services. The HQ Quality and Safety Commission will give the service provider clear information around the time frame which they have to make improvements so that the standards are complied with. The Commission will establish a timetable for improvement for both residential and home services if they fail to meet the standards. When non-compliance is identified, the Commission is also required to determine whether or not a consumer has been or may be placed at serious risk to their health, safety and well-being.
So it's about really responding to the risk of harm to consumers as well as upgrading improvements. To ensure service providers continue to meet the aged care quality standards, the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission monitors the quality of care and services through assessment contracts. The Commission may also arrange for a review audit of an accredited service to be conducted in certain circumstances. An assessment contract is usually a visit to a service, for example, residential services. It's usually an interest scope to understand the fault or to understand something better.
An assessment contract can either be announced or unannounced.
It's different to a comprehensive audit or a quality review, and it's just a way of us keeping an eye on things to see if things are going well.
The aged care quality standards focus on outcomes for consumers. As a result, we can all have greater confidence in the quality of care across Australia. Services need to understand that aged care quality standards can improve and influence culture and inform practice.
The aged care quality standards focus on outcomes for consumers. Meeting these standards is about working with consumers to provide safe and quality care and services that meet their needs and support them to live the life they choose.
was a mouthful. Any questions?
Oh, like on that, what's that 8 standard thing? I was like, oh, you know how about the food, you know, take, you know, spend money to take the food. I remember, oh, my daughter's, great grandmother, she was in, the shepherd, and, but the uncles, like her sons were like, oh yeah, we'll bring you some fish, blah, 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 but then they're thinking like, yeah, what about, you know, she chose, you know, even though she had dementia, you know, she was just like,
What was her name?
we call her Annie Lou.
Lulu. Yeah, remember,
Yeah.
big hair, little
Yeah.
lady. Yeah, she's lovely. Yeah.
But I was just like,
Did they take the food in?
they always promise her. I used to get up to the boys because they used to go there drunk. So I said, why are you drinking? You know, you'll be going to see your mother, you know. I kept on talking to go and see her and that. But they just didn't, every time they go there, they'll cry, but, and because they're drunk. But, you know, they only just.
Yeah, and you know, it's such an important thing actually for culture is their food, because that's always the
Yeah.
first thing that comes up, and it is one of the main. Yeah.
Don't promise her you're gonna get, you know,
Yeah.
even though she won't remember.
Yeah,
Right,
it's
so you're
still the
gonna, you know.
concept, yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you know, they had to look at that. They had to say, okay, well, what precautions can we put in place? Because it was one of our rules we had that family wasn't allowed to drink.
So yeah.
So because it changed last year, they had to bring precautions in, obviously, for food health, you know, so like health standards, so food don't expire, and, you know, family would have to take responsibility. Obviously for choking and things like that. So you couldn't just leave the food with them.
Yeah.
If they are
They
like
have to
Lulu
feed
was, they would
themselves,
have
yeah.
to feed them then,
Yeah.
yeah. But they have changed a little bit, and I think, I suppose the main thing that you have to remember, if there's ever a site audit or, you know, there's a review, that you might not know all the answers. You might not be able to sit there and tell them everything they need to know. But you need to know, first thing you need to know when you start at a place is, where is their policies and procedures? Okay, so if it's online, you need to know how to access it. If it's in the office somewhere, you need to know exactly where it is. Okay, it's normally like quite a thick file, and just know where it is, because all the answers will be in there. If they ask you anything about anything, you might say, well, I've just started here, I'm not sure, but I know where to find the answer. I know where the policies and procedures manual is. I'll go get it, and then I can tell you. And then you've answered them correctly. So that is the main thing, because they do approach us and say, how does this work? How does that work? Because they know we'll tell them the truth, you know, if it's not working well. But the best answer is like, I know where the policies and procedures are. Because that will have.
In the video, like, some of them were only taking one standard. Like,
Yeah.
they only did it to whatever is there.
Yeah.
So with the whole A, like, even though you said before, like, you have to do with your child one of them.
Yeah.
Your child, you know,
Yeah.
two. But even though they wanted, like care and part, like, or whatever it is, like, you know, you still fail. Even though they only want like that, like, oh, I wanted this assistance, you know, more help during the week, you know.
Yeah, because they provided that. So it was more like, yes, so that's feedback, so that they can work on feedback, and then they know that, yeah, the feedback is provided. So the standard would be failed if there is nothing changed. So they always give you a time to improve. There's always a period afterwards. I think they said 28 days. Then they come back and see whether you've made improvements. So if any of the clients had feedback, whether it was the old Italian man saying, oh, I don't get what I want, or the place like the old man with the beard, like, oh, there's some mistakes still in my bathroom, it's still not working well, they'd have to improve that. Yeah, they'd have to work at that. So yeah, it's they are a lot more focused on that, and it's more strict. So in the 80s, when I first did my training as AIN, we called them patients. And then it changed in the 90s to clients. No, I like it. Changed to residents. So they were called residents. And then it changed in the 2000s to clients. Now it's changed to customers. So just a little bit of a notice. I suppose there's that because the focus changed. If you say the customer's always right, we were always told that it's kind of like a known little saying. Then that changes our view to the client. So if you just say client, yeah, we know client, but the saying is not the client's always right. It's the customer's always right. So when you look at it like that, you realize the step up, the notch to customer satisfaction, to doing what the customer wants. When I worked in the UK, we were very much pushed on it, and we were told we'll lose our job if they ever hear us say, "Oh, you can't have a cup of tea," or "I can't do that for you now." You know, we were told, "Oh, you'll lose your job." If somebody presses the buzzer and they ask for something, it doesn't matter how ridiculous it is, you do it. When I came to Australia, it was like not an issue. People would even put the buzzers off, you know, and not, take the buzzer away from somebody. And I thought, if I was in the UK and that happened, I would be out the door, you know, if somebody finds out. So we got away with a lot more, yeah, but that step up is there, you know, that realization is there. Last year, a lot of the care providers in Mackay went actually to the UK to go look at their model. And part of this was based on what they were doing in the UK and they've been doing in the UK for a long time. As well as in dementia care, we started focusing a lot more on what the client wants. So if they don't want to change, we don't change it, even though everything in us say, well, I have to change. You did, come, I have to. And then where we would before would have been three of us, two of us, one would hold the hands and the other one would climb in there. You can't do that. You're not allowed to do that because you can hurt them. Obviously, they can hurt them. So you have to be creative in finding a way to convince them. You can't convince them. It's their dignity of choice. They've chosen to be in that situation. So you just have to let it go. And it's quite a mind shift. It's quite a mind shift. And you still get a lot of carers out there that's still in the old mindset. That's still so stuck on routines and schedules and goals. And you are going to face those goals, boys, young people and old people, and especially the older RNs and ENs, they are the worst for it because they're so stuck in that constitutionalized way of doing things. It's my way or the highway. You know, you are just the resident, yeah, I'm the boss. We are working in their homes. They're not living in our workplace. We are working in their homes. So whatever they say goes, you know, we have to learn to sort of think about it like that. And, you know, it's a big deal. Type of equipment, we will do a simulation day in December before you guys finish, where we will be using this equipment, the lifting equipment, stand-up lifters, full hoist, so you can get used to using this type of equipment. So we'll go through toilet chairs and stuff. Family support, very important. Respect the inclusion of the family and the carers as part of our carers. That's quite clever, hey? There was a man that had his son that built a bicycle like that for his son, that his disabled son that went on the triathlon with his son before. Yeah. So yeah, very good. So they're part of our support team. Listen to them. They will tell you what they want, especially when it's disabled people and they can't tell you what, you know, who they are. So the mum will know who the child is and what their needs are. So just listen to them, work with them. It's vital. Provide support according to the duty of care and dignity. Duty of care requirements refers to our obligation to take responsibility for their care. Now, this is where that comes into conflict with each other. Our level of support needs to reach their requirements. We need to ensure that we provide adequate care, ensure our colleagues provide adequate. We're sometimes responsible for other people's work also, because you don't know what happened on the previous shift. You know, you might walk into it and the person's lying there in his own feces in his bed or soaking wet. And you go, they didn't do their job. But they might have had a big fall and they might have had something go wrong. Then our responsibility is to pick up and, you know, and just go in, pick up the slack and then help, you know. It's happened to me 10 to 11 just before I go home at night. This old boy soiled himself in his whole room and it's just like one big mess, you know. You go in, you try what you can, do what you can, but night shift come on and you say, look, I'm sorry, this just happened. You know, I haven't been able to fix it. Somebody else is up and walking and wandering, so I had to leave it and go and see to somebody else, you know. And so it happens, especially if you work with people with dementia, people with mental health issues and stuff. You know, you have to be flexible. You have to adjust and pick up the responsibility. Duty of risk. So the client will take that risk. And this is where our conflict comes. So they take that risk, but they have the right to take that risk. They choose the risk when they engage in their own life experiences. You need to support your customer in this experience, in the things, whether it will lead to success or to failure. You know, there's not always the answer for it. Sometimes things go wrong. Don't overprotect your customer. Never tell them what to do. Don't hinder their rights and to make their own decisions, but offer them reasonable support and assistance in making decisions and follow it through. So you're not going to wake somebody up just because it's dinner time. If they just come to have a little sleep, you're not waking them. You can put the food in the fridge and warm it up later. And if it's something that you can't do, like eggs, because I always say you can't warm up eggs later, then you say, well, we'll just make a sandwich later when they wake up. Or, you know, don't wake somebody up when they've just gone to sleep just because this is our routine, you know. This is where the behaviors happen. If somebody has, you know, whatever they choose to do, you need to let them do that because their body clocks are out and yeah, I mean, it really sets them off if you do. So
it's like, wake up kids, oh, they want to go to bed, you know, late, oh, no, wake up, you got daycare, get in the shower. And they do it like cranky.
Yeah. And you see, the thing is that their body clock sometimes gets disturbed with illnesses or whatever, and then it's all back to front and they walk through the night. And it takes a while to get back into routine. Routine is important, and a lot of, especially the older people. Yeah.
They go to daycare, but you know, and then of course I'll wait for school, but then I need to start doing it.
Yeah, I'm quite strict with routine. I find that if somebody has a routine, it's familiar. You know, they know what to expect. Like even with my granddaughter, I always try to get her to go and sleep in the afternoon between 12 and 2. Sometimes 12 o'clock we try to have a little lie down. She doesn't fall asleep. I said, you're not tired yet? No, not. 2 o'clock she'll start crying and be miserable or something, and then we'll go lie down. And she sleeps an hour, and then she's up tonight at 9. We're in bed. She'll lie and roll around, but eventually she'll go to sleep, you know, like last night also. We went to bed by 9, not later than 9, and I stick with that. And then she's up at 6 and just good morning, and she's happy, and you know, you can keep that. If her mom's around, she lies in her mom's bed and watches the phone with her mum, and then they don't go to sleep until 11, and tomorrow morning it's issue to get her going, you know. So it's hard because I have to go to work, so she has to go to daycare. She was moaning all day.
Because I didn't really care.
Yeah.
Like, it was the only kid for like 13 years, you know, like I let him do pretty much whatever. And now he'll like school holidays, he'll stay up all night, sleep all day, get up in the afternoon.
Oh, bugger that.
I should have put him in a routine
Yeah.
back then. Now it's just too late. So.
Yeah. And you know, you really, and the same with the older people, especially also people with disability. It's familiar, and familiar. If it's familiar, it makes them feel safe. You know, if they watch the show every night at 5 o'clock, they watch what's that game show? The Chase Australia. They watch that every 5 o'clock at night and don't disturb them then, you know. And it's that familiar routines that it gives them safety and security, and they know what to expect, they know what, you know, and it you know, it's just part of, this is the day, this is the routine. Don't enforce our routines on them, but we learn to adjust to their routines. Very good to have a toileting routine. You know, if you toilet somebody in the morning when they get up, it's the same as potty training somebody. You know, you get up and just before lunch you go to the toilet. Actually, then their continence reduces because they actually then go to the toilet at the same time every day, and they train their bladder, and you know, and they probably need less pads and stuff. So it's all sort of works together. But never try to overprotect your clients. My boss always used to say to Chip, we were always, oh, they had another fall, and you dance yourself around them and try to protect them. You can't tie them down. You can't wrap them up in cotton wool. You can't. You just, you know, you do your best. You can't force them to sit down if they don't want to sit down. You know, they're making that decision to keep walking, even though they are off their head tired. You know, you get these old boys with dementia, and they in that emerald stage where they just run all the time, and they just fall over every 5 minutes, and they, you know, it's just crazy. And you know, but you can't wrap them up in cotton wool. You just have to roll with it. So just let them make their own decisions, and balancing these two requirements. You know, the duty and care in us are all screaming out to us. I want to help them. I don't want them to be in this mess. I don't want them to fall. I don't want them to hurt. But they still have that dignity of choice. Because if you take the dignity of choice away, people get depressed. They get depressed. If you know, if you tie them in the chair, they get depressed. They get other. It takes. Yeah, it really, really, it's horrible. They become quiet. They lose their will to live, really. So we have to learn how to balance this, you know, how to be accepted. At the same time, be a bit clever. You know, I've had an old lady sit and then she hands it to me and says, oh, that's lovely chocolate cake, you know. Let's go for a little walk. No, come on, darling. Let's go get some lipstick on your little lippies before lunch. You know, and then say, okay, and she comes with you. And then when you get to the toilet, if you tell her that you're going to the toilet, she'll just say no. But, you know, if you find some other way to lure her to come and walk with you, she might just come with you because you promised her other things. And when you get in there, and, oh, while we're here now, we might as well go to the toilet quickly first, you know, and you get in there and you give her a quick wash and get her dressed nice and put lippy on and put a bit of perfume on, and then, oh, look at you now. And then she's all happy, and, you know, you be a little bit devious sometimes, but clever, you know, and getting them to do what, you know, and that's to protect their dignity as well, you know, just like trying to find that balance. Yeah, let's take this chocolate cake for the neighbor. He would like it. Just don't touch me while we're going. So in the workplace safety, we're responsible for everyone. We're responsible for ourselves, our safety. We're responsible for our clients' safety. We're responsible for the safety of our placemates, you know, our colleagues. So we have to contribute to being generally considerate and apply common sense. Some hazards can seem quite insignificant or trivial, but they can become serious, or they can have serious consequences. Many hazards can be tackled simply and quickly. So contribute to safety. Safety is shouldn't be punishment. You know, sometimes safety is used as a punishment, like if, you know, on the mines and stuff, that helpers are so in safety, and then accidents actually happen because it's like used as a, you know, if you step out of line and, you know, you get a warning letter or something. It should be just a way of life. It's just like at home, you know. You drop a glass and there's glass everywhere. You're going to do everything in your power to clean it up as good as you can and get everywhere to make sure you know, there's not a splinter lying somewhere and somebody's going to step in it, you know. It's just, in some ways it's common sense, yes, but most people, yeah, sometimes it's an attitude towards it. It's an attitude to the safety worry, like my kid can come in and step on it, and, you know, and how sore that could be. So that's, again, just talking, you know, the whole time about this battle we have between duty of care and the dignity of risk. Duty of care, we have the responsibility to reduce or limit the amount of harm and injury they may experience. This is the responsibility known as duty of care, where dignity of risk refers to the concept affording a person the right or the dignity to make reasonable risks that may implement the right and can suffocate this personal growth, self-esteem, and overall quality of life. You know, people become like shells. When I first came to Australia, it was something I really, really struggled with. I started working at the Shepherd Lodge, and I worked there for 2 weeks. And yes, okay, just the move from the UK, and we were still waiting for our furniture, and just having we just moved from Africa to the UK 2 years before that, and then 2 years later we moved here. So I haven't had those 2 big moves from 3 continents in 2 years. Was taking its toll on me. So I was over emotional, I was tired and everything. But when I walked into Good Shepherd Lodge and I saw that surviving sitting there quiet, not responding, it broke my heart. I was crying the whole time. I just couldn't believe it because they were non-verbal. They were just, most of them were just sitting there like vegetables, not saying a thing, you know? And the main reason for that was constitutionalized abuse. There's no other words for it. It's people taking their dignity of choice away. And they were forced to be in a place where they didn't want to be. And it was an unpleasant place. You know, it wasn't nice. We've come a far way in the last 7 years. But 7 years ago, it was not a nice place. It wasn't a nice place to work at, and it wasn't a nice place to live in. You know, if you think about taking your mum to an old age home, and you go walk through that old age home, and you see all of them, and they look so unhappy, and they look so sad, and they don't want to be there, you know? It's just, and it's because there's no joy, no laughter, no movement, no, you know, life in there. We've come a real far way. There's been a lot of shifts that's happened. And now you go walk in there, you'll see games playing, you'll hear music playing, you'll see people walk around, you'll hear laughter and talk, and, you know, it's nice to work in a place like that. We have so much fun, you know, because we are not all so serious, you know, we're joking and we're playing and we do it, and they are having fun, and it's nice to work there, you know, and it's nice to support each other and to be there together. So just dignity of choice or dignity of risk was first coined in 1972 by Robert Persky in relation to people living with disabilities, and further expanded by Wolpert's in 1980s in Dignity of Risk paper that was the reduction to overprotective safeguards and parentistic nature witnessed in care living, which they argued was patronizing and diminishing the person's freedom and self-esteem. In the 80s, we tied the old people down to the chairs. We did it. It was the way we dealt with people walking around. It is disgusting. We used to do that. Used to use a flat sheet and tie it around their bodies and tie it on the back of their chair so that they stuck there. They just sat there all day, you know, and then you come and push food into their face, then they don't have a choice. They, you know, because, if they get up, they fall and they break their hip. So what? So what? You know, as long as she has joy of still being able to run around. Some of them are so cute because they get up and they go and fuck with another oldie sitting there and try to be motherly towards them, and you know, they like, oh no, she needs a little blankie on her legs, and you know, she needs, you know, and they fuck over each other, and you know, and then
one of the old blokes like an old
yeah, and they just sit and pass over and rub her hand, and yeah, they do that, and it's so cute when they do it. I had one old boy that doing that with one old girl, and he actually. He thought it was his mum. He thought it was his mum. We all thought it was a love affair, but it wasn't. He thought it was his mum. And then I had another old girl that did that to the old boy that was in his chair, and she always used to go to him. And I don't know who she thought he was, but she used to always go and fuck over him and go, no, he needs a little blankie on his chair. What, you know, so they care for each other and they have that opportunity to, you know, still do something really. So it's so important to them. And since we first used this phrase, the care settings have come a long way in encouraging independence and residents making decisions. And in Australia, dignity of risk approach has been formally integrated into residential care settings around the country. In care settings such as residential care settings, affording dignity of risk to allow the residents the same personal freedoms they would enjoy if they were living in independent settings. It is directly tied to standard 1 and the aged care quality standards. So, you know, the ideal is somebody can age in place, and that is another terminology that is, you know, part in the UK, it's a big thing for a long time already. So somebody can age in their own home and they send carers to them. That industry is expanding in Australia, and that's why this works for us. You know, that's why the ratio is so much better. If you can care for 3 or 4 residents in their home, it's just you and them. You know, instead of in a care home, you've got 12, 15 old people to look after, and 3 or 4, 6 hours, you know, you are exhausted, run off your feet, and they didn't get the attention that they want or need, you know. So it's so much better if we can care for them. Think about COVID, if it's real, if it's true, if it's whatever it is, you know, isn't it more ideal to be one-on-one? You know, at least we're not carrying the bug around, you know, we're there. And they actually have that personal touch. They have time with them. Could you imagine how it would be in an old age home where there's COVID? That poor darlings would have to be locked in their own room. They wouldn't see a soul, you know, and if they see somebody, they will be all masked up and whatever. How horrendous it is. And a lot of them are, I believe, oh, poor darlings. And I believe a lot of them actually give up. They actually just give up. I don't want to live anymore. Why, you know? And it's horrible. It's just because of they couldn't see anyone or touch anyone. I know my mother stopped eating because of that. I know my great-grandfather is at the moment in the UK doing the same thing. My mother sent me a message my mother-in-law sent me a message over the weekend saying they're going over there today. It's not allowed to see anyone. And when they go in there, they have to be all, you know.
The lady,
yeah.
The lady like where I live, she's in an old age care down in Newton Play, and her daughter can go and see her, and she's got to stand at the window and they just look up at the window. And
yeah, horrendous. You know, or you have to wear a mask and they can't even see your face, you know. Good Shepherd, I go work there the other night. I had to wear a mask the whole night. I didn't know I was. I had to take my mask off and give them a little smile. Oh, look at you. And then, you know, I mean, shit, we're darlings. It's like getting cared for aliens, you know. I mean, ooh, you know, it's just horrendous. What do they live for? What do they have left to live for? You know, they only have the human connection. They don't have cars, they don't have fancy houses, they don't have big salaries, they don't have parties to go to, they don't have friends. What do they have left? Only that human contact, you know, their family. That's the most important thing. Yeah, so, you know, we need to look after them, provide assistance to maintain safe environment, and the standards is there. I'm just not going to go through all the standards again. Maintenance, safe systems, work health and safety training, occupational health, that is our health, looking after ourselves when we go in there, protect our backs and posture and stuff, infection control, and of course security, fire and stuff. Provide assistance. Here's the theory. Provide assistance to maintain clean, comfortable environments, still part of this, the aged care environment after aged care standards. Just to, you know, we I didn't do infection control with that. I did it with another group last week. That's why all of these things are still out here. I'm still doing some practicals with them, you know, gloving up and using our PPE when you go in and washing your hands and washing around the areas where you work. Make sure you clean it up. In the 80s, it was our responsibility. We didn't have cleaners, didn't go in and clean patients' bedrooms, clients or customers' bedrooms. They do. You have cleaners now in older homes, and you know, when you're in the community, it is your responsibility. But if you're in an aged care facility, you have a cleaning team coming in doing that. It used to be our job. We used to be responsible for washing the beds, down bedside, the bed frames around, the bedside cupboards, the rails, you know, inside the cupboards, packing the clothes. A lot of those things are getting neglected because there's just not enough time in a day to get that done, you know. The doorknobs, if you are now in a residential care, they have a bit of a routine going with the COVID thing to, you know, wipe all the counters down before you leave, you know. Yeah, all the touch points, the fridge and everywhere else. So keep all of that clean and low risk, maintaining that environment. What is a comfortable environment? It's to be free from anxiety, be honest, create a welcoming atmosphere, clean and safe, allow the client to feel secure. So it's also about temperature. So sometimes you go out in the community, some of these oldies don't like putting the aircons on. It's all moldy inside and stuff like that. Odors, noise, light. So looking after that environment. Respect their differences and ensure maximum dignity and privacy. So dignity and privacy, I'm not going to talk much about it. Just maintain, you know, look after their dignity. They close them when you're showering them. I always say take tools. I like taking 3 towels when I go shower somebody. I hate showering somebody with just 1 towel, you know. You can wash that towel to, you know, the machine does the washing. You go hang it on the line. It's not a serious thing. If you're in an HV place, so what? I just use 3 towels. 1 over their body, 1 over the private bits, you know. Keep them warm and comfortable, and 1 to dry with. When you finish showering, and cover them up, and then take your extra towel and dry their feet and dry their bits, and, you know, or at least 2 towels. You know, when they're in the bed, and one of the carers that's working at one of my students from the previous group, they're just busy with their placements now. The other day came and she said, you know, the thing you said about the towels, it's a thing, it's a problem. People go out there with 1 dingy little towel and try to give somebody a shower, and you're not protecting their dignity like that. You know, they're sitting out there, you know, in the open, and you know, it's not nice. And then I wonder why people have behaviors. You know, it's because they're not protected. They don't want, yeah, why, you know, they just not. Yeah, and you just, exactly, we don't want to do it, you know, protect them. So this is about cultural safety. I can't see what it says. Oh, it says cultural impact, cultural blindness. It's an interesting thing about cultural blindness. You know that, and I've seen that in Africa. I was attacked in Zambia once. I was in the streets, walking in the streets, and somebody attacked me. And then I was really scared. Well, they just tried to grab stuff from me, and I was really scared to go out. For a long time, I was scared to go out until this one other person said to me the one day, you know, to them a white person all look white. They all, all look the same. And isn't it the truth? When you first meet a Chinese person, they all look the same. You know? Yeah. All the same, yeah. Or we look at a Filipino and we think, unless you get to know somebody, they all look the same. So we have a bit of a cultural blindness. It's natural. Most people do, you know. Is that a bit of a sip we live with, you know? People look the same. Unless you spend a bit more time with them and you get to know them. And for old people, it's the same, you know, even more. People with disabilities, they have cultural blindness. Competence, so explore cultural issues, permitted access, and you know, just some cultures have been neglected from certain areas and certain things. So we have a responsibility to step up and do better, you know, so I won't go too much on all of that. So provide service support, seek assistance when possible, when you're giving support. Always call your supervisor. If you don't know, call the supervisor. Doesn't matter what issue you have, whether it's medical, whether it's a challenging behavior, if it's a cultural challenge, whatever problem you have, your supervisor they are trained to help you. They have the conflict training and all of the rest to be able to help with things like that. Chapter 3.1, monitor your own work and ensure the required standards are maintained. So we have a responsibility to evaluate ourselves through changes and stuff, and that's part of the standard 3. Report all activities and monitoring your own work. Reflect on, you know, that you are honest and that you are accountable for whatever reason. Monitor your support activities, involve people in this discussions about how services meet their needs, just like they spoke about, you know, on that standards there, and they asked them, you know, what do you need? How much assistance do you need? And they make the choices. So identify aspects of individualized plans that might need to be renewed, whether it's standard 3, standard 5. Engagement, you know, they might need a continence assessment, they might need a sleep assessment. I have one student who looks after a man that has got acquired brain injury, and he says the guy sleeps all day on the couch and then he doesn't sleep at night, you know. And the problem is most probably a medication that is wrong. You know, he's probably getting a medication in the morning that makes him sleepy, and then by nighttime he's not tired anymore. So writing it down all the time might prompt a review of his medication to see, well, maybe something can be done about it, you know. Reviewing your individualized plan, discuss it with your supervisor. Participate in decisions with the person, about the person, and the supervisor in a manner that supports the person's self-determination. So the aim is the quality of care, and the service are provided from a knowledgeable, capable caring person that has the right skills and qualification and knowledge to do the job. That's why we're doing this training, you know. At some stage in the 80s, we did intensive training for AIMs. It was a whole 9 months. 42 hours a week we had, you know, full on. It was 12-hour shifts, 3 days, 4 days a week, 12-hour shifts, other days 6-hour shifts, and we had study days, and it was full on for 9 months. That was my qualification I got originally. Okay, we learned other things. We did learn how to do injections and other things was in our scope of practice as well. But yeah, hygiene care, you know, caring for the environment, all of that was part of our training. And then, I don't know where it happened, somewhere along the line, I think it was towards the end of the 1999, yeah, to the 2000s, they decided, no, you know what, the floor workers can do that. We used to call them the floor workers, you know, like the general cleaners. They can be AIMs, you know. So AIM training got taken away. There was no nursing training, nursing assistant training or care worker training at all. So anyone could just walk in there and be a care worker, no training whatsoever, and they just, oh, it's common sense how to wash somebody or wipe a bum, no training. What happened? The bed sores became a big issue. We landed up getting hospital viruses like MRSA, and it went rough, staph infections, and it just went through the roof. And, you know, people had horrible ulcers on their legs, and, you know, care just took such a dive. People just didn't get, and that became so institutionalized because the few trained staff that was there was RNs and ENs, and they were the ones that were so rigid about things. So, you know, people's dignity and choice went away, nobody was equipped. People just, everybody just did whatever they thought they should do. There was no, you know, continuity and care or anything. And then they realized, oh no, we can't do that. So let's bring it back. And then they came back with the Cert 3s. So before we used to be registered, we used to get it, we've got a little button, and we used to carry that little button. We had to pay a yearly fee to be registered. They took that all away, and now, you know, obviously you get your Cert 3, but nobody knows whether you've got it or not. You know, it's still sort of a hit and miss situation. Yes, in the aged care facility, you do need a Cert 3 to go in there, but most of the disability care, they're not. It's not a rule yet, you know, it's not a rule. You can go in there and they do their in-house training. But the government has recognized that there's a need, and that's why there's so much funding now in Cert 3 and training people in, you know, that there is a need. And then that's why the aged care standards and the aged care commission came into place and say, well, look, we really need to review this whole situation. Things are not right. People are not getting treated the way they should be treated, you know. So, things became, you know, essential, and we now therefore have to do a Cert 3. And by next year, it's definitely going to become a rule in the community as well. So still now, some of the community care companies would still abuse the fact that you don't need the Cert 3, and they will pay you less, and they'll make you work. And if any problems comes across, you know, you won't know. You won't know what's your rights, because, you know, that's the way they want it and not the way they like it, because they obviously making money from you, and you're the one that's actually losing on the losing end of the scale, because you just don't have, you're not equipped. You don't know, yeah, what you're supposed to do and what your rights are. That's the main thing. What can I say no for? And, you know, what, you know, and again, I say it's a license to work with people. It's a protection. You know, if you drive without your license, you can go to jail. You know, so if you drive without a license in care, if you go working without your Cert 3 and trouble comes, you're going to be standing in the court by yourself. You're not going to have them protecting you. You know, if somebody sues you, a family member sues you, you know, you've got no liability, you've got you on your own, you don't know, you know. So join the union, get that protection, and get your Cert 3s. Don't let you get bluffed by a company saying, oh, you don't need it, you know. Get it, it's for yourself, not for them.
Well,
you know. Yeah.
Your fault, nobody's doing what you.
Yeah, and it's not up to them, they won't tell you. And you see the union sends you a lot of paperwork and training and stuff to keep you up to date with what's happening in the industry, you know. When there's changes, the union will sort of remind you of the changes and keep you up to date if anything else happens. So you know what's the expectation. That you don't go and put your foot in it. land up in a situation. So yeah, this complete documentation. Just remember, maintaining confidentiality and privacy in the person in all dealings. What happens with your client and your client's home and in the care home stays there. Yes, we do need a debriefing sometimes. We need to sometimes, get it off our mind, but go and share it with a fellow colleague that works with that client as well. And then you bounce off each other in privacy of your own home. Make a cup of tea and cry on each other's shoulders. Yeah. Or go see a counselor if you really need to, and that's sometimes really needed. Queensland Midwives and Nurses Union. I'll send you a link when you guys are finished. It's $19 a fortnight. So because you're falling under Queensland healthcare workers code of conduct anyways, that's why you are described as nurses. You are I quite often refer to us as AINs, assistant nurses. I know in the community they don't like that, but we are that. Whether they like it or not, we are nurses, and we are working in the healthcare industry. Whether they like it or not, it's part of what we do. So maintain confidentiality and privacy includes closing the door, drawing the curtains, covering your client up. It's not just privacy in their documentation, it's privacy, not talking about them over their heads. Standing your client, you're busy with your client, and then you talk to each other about them, or not including them. And that's fine to talk to your partner about something you did on the weekend or yesterday. I've got my friends coming to visit me, and we made this big. I've got this big red pot that I put on the fire. I made oxtail in there, 5 packets of oxtail in there with all these veggies and everything. And it's like 6 o'clock. Nobody's arriving. I SMS'd. I said, "What time are you coming?" She says, "Oh, in 7 days' time."
We're a week ahead of that.
Oh, weekend. But I should show you the SMS she sent me. She said something like this Monday, and I thought, it was like, anyway.
What did you do with the oxtail?
I froze it. I put it all in little plastic containers, and I froze it. We've got food for the whole week. We're eating oxtail this whole week. That's for sure. But sometimes we can share these things, with our clients and include them in the conversation and make them have a part of, our lives and what we're doing, because we can share things with each other. It doesn't mean we can't, just include them in the conversation. That's the main thing. And in our responsibilities, be on time, notify your supervisor when you can't work, respect confidentiality, respect their rights, support the independence of the client, have a non-judgmental approach, understand and respect the boundaries, respect the interests of your organization, carry out your specific job requirements, complete assigned tasks, even feedback, be accountable, be committed to your client's programs, recognize the person, acknowledge decisions made by other staff, undertake training as required, and there's some more responsibilities. Address all areas of conflict with your supervisor, ask for support when you need, act professionally, be appropriately dressed all the time. We can't wear rings and watches when we care for people, because it can give them skin tears and scratches and stuff. Tie your hair back, earrings and stuff. So those rings can sometimes be dangerous because they can hook their fingers in there. Yeah, slippers is fine, but if it's small slippers, then that's fine. But the rings can be dangerous. They can tear that out. You know, obviously be hygienic and clean in yourself. You don't want to be smelly and sweaty when you come real close to somebody caring for them. You want to smell nice and fresh. At Good Shepherd, we had a CN there that used to hate perfume. If you put perfume on, then she would pick up on that. She just did not like perfume. But some people don't know how to put not too much. And you know, and some people can be allergic to the smell. Yeah, some people, you know, get headaches from it. So you have to be, you know, I mean, the best is to have a like Dove or something that is not perfumed. Yeah.
Someone's got a lot of perfume on, and I smell it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can't really wear perfume. Just make sure you're clean and, you know, and fresh, but not, you know. So those are all the risks. Completing documentations, complying with organization informal and formal reporting requirements. So it may be accidents and injuries, the customer's progress, Medicare and medication, mandatory notifications. Mandatory is when somebody's been abused. You know, you have a mandatory report. Any other observations? Remember to, whatever the organization tells you how to do it can be different from place to place. You know, somebody might have it on computer, others might have a paper file system. Some clients, it might be a file in their house. Reports, just remember to have it must be correct. It must be sent to the right person. And yeah, remember, if you didn't write it down, it did not happen. You know, and even if things like, and I say this a lot, but it's true, even if things are a regular occurrence, you know, you might client always sleeps during the day and he doesn't sleep. It's a usual thing. We always, but still keep writing it down because somewhere a doctor or somebody's going to pick up, oh, this is not right. Something's wrong, you know. And if we don't keep writing it down, they might not take notice of it and it might never change. But we can make a difference in, you know, writing it down. Just within our scope of practice, identify and respond to situations or potential risk in our scope of practice. So these risks may be, we put people at risk as well. When we get tired, when we fatigue, obviously you can't go to work when you're under the influence of drugs and alcohol. When you're sick, can't go to work when you're sick. You know, really, we shouldn't go to work when we're distracted either. You know, we have heaps of other issues at home and, you know, because you can make a mistake. Or you can be off your game and something happens and, you know, you get, when you're in an emotional state, you know.
I always thought it helped, like it used to help me, like when I was like I was glad to be at work. You know,
When there's issues,
when I
yeah.
had issues at home or something, you know, I was just like, yeah.
But you see, when you work with people, it's sometimes a little hard, especially if you work with people with mental illness or dementia. If you are emotionally stressed or you've got a lot of things, you're not top of your game. And if they come at you with aggression or they slap you, you know, you might react in a way unexpected. Yeah, it will happen. It could happen. It does happen. It happens. And you can't do that. You know, you can't slap a vulnerable person because, you know, just can't do it. And you have to be, you need to see the blows coming before they come. And, you know, if you're not on top of your game, that happens. Last year I got so tired. I was so over emotional because I got slapped so many times, and there was a lot of changes in the house. We got a lot of new clients. You know, a lot of our clients passed away. Sometimes they all are gone and like in a cluster. And we got a heap of new clients, and a lot of them were males and the same age, and they were all under us and aggressive. And so we got blowed. Hey, I got smacked against the head, and I got kicked, and I got kicked, and I got spat at, and I got hit so many times, and it just kept happening. And we had this one particular client who was also hard behaviors, really a lot of hard behaviors. And I just got so emotional, worn down. I was just over emotional. And then one day I was in the one area, only one nurse is at night time with dinner, and on the other area two nurses. And I was on the side where I was alone. And there's how many rooms is in that side? 12 rooms. 12, there's 12 rooms on that side. And I was getting them all ready for dinner, and we had this one old boy. He was an old policeman, and he was starting to get really difficult as well. And and I said to him, "Come on, get up, let's go to the bathroom. And you go for dinner now." And he said, "No." And he was saying this all week. Dinner time, I'm trying to get them to the table, and you just sit this one down and you jump up again. It's like bushfires, you know. And you're still trying to get that one to come and sit down, and it jumps up again. And I stood with this old boy and I said, "Come on, man, let's get up and go to the bathroom so you can get ready for dinner." And he said, "No, I'm not." And it was just the end of my line. Yeah, I should have. And I started crying. And I had this other lady there. She was reaching for the light. She used to do this. And at some stage, the one night, she tried to suffocate another woman. She was just off with the fairies, and she was still young. So she's there wandering around here. There's another old boy, and he's wandering, and another tiny little darling, she's wandering, and they're all around me, and here I am. Woo! Guess what? Dinner was cancelled that night. Nobody came to the table because I'm the leader of the pack, and the leader of the pack's little wheels just came off. So that whole house was just one big mess. Nobody was worrying. Everybody was just so restless. I couldn't get anyone to sit down. And the more I was trying, the more I was crying. And it was just, no, this is useless. It just got so hard. And that night I decided, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. I went to the office and I said to my ear, and I said, "I'm sorry, but unless you send that old boy to the hospital," because he was the one that started it, he used to throw feces all around his room, and he'd come in and he'd have his pants off, and and then he would try to box you, and and I said, and he's there in the dining room trying to hit this other old lady with the table. He walks with the table like that to her, and he tries to hit her with the table, and I'm seriously, I'm going home. Unless you get the ambulance to come, I'm going home. The next day I went to my doctor and I said to my doctor, "You put me on stress leave now. I'm not going back there." She wrote me a letter not to work in dementia anymore. And until now, they won't put me back in dementia. They was like, no. And if I go back to my CN now and I say, "I'm ready to go and back to dementia," and she has a little chat with me, and then I start crying again. "You're not ready to go back into dementia." They wear you down. After 5 years, it was just too much. Even thinking about it is too much. You get to that place, you can't work like that. You just can't. You're looking after people with behaviors, and you have to know where every one of them are at all times. You need to know what state of mind they are in, what emotional state they are in, whether that one's going to hit that one or that one's going to try to get out the window, or, because you have engineers in there, you have doctors in there, you have, scientists in there, you have policemen in there, and they are all men with plans. I tell you, they can make screwdrivers out of coat hangers and unscrew the window. That's happened. We out at dinner, look, where's he? I don't know. And he had climbed over the fence. And then he'd taken down the road, to find the police.
The leaders in charge of flowers, even tied old people's homes on one corner and we were on the other. One day I was looking and I was looking at the door and I was hey, an old lady walking down the middle of the road. He went there and I said, "There." And he said, "I've seen her at Eventide." And here she was, walking down the road. She escaped, walking down the road, falling down, and his wife blocked her on the road. not taking no notice of anyone. It was the main highway where all the big sending cattle trucks come through and everything. So we went and grabbed her. And my husband said, "Come on, love, come over to my house and I'll give you a cup of tea." And I said, "You get up to me," and I know if they've lost anybody. When I was walking up, back up there, I asked them, car pulled up, and I said, "Have you seen so-and-so?" I said, "She's down at my place having a cup of tea with my husband." That's how we get to there.
Yeah, this old boy that night he got out, it was at 5 and he timed it. Hey, he knew we were in the dining room busy, and you know, you had this fight every night. You sit somebody down and you try to go to get the next one, and that one jumps up and he's on the way again. And he knew that dinner time was a particular battle. Hey, it was a particular battle getting everyone there. He got out, he got over the fence, he put the chair behind the tree where we didn't notice it and then he undone he had screwed all fly screen off, and he planned it, and he got over that fence. When we called the CN came and checked on the cameras, he got over the fence, sailed over the fence. He landed up climbing into somebody's caravan down the road. And then that's when they called the police. So by the time we called the police, he was already at the police station because they called the police. You know, you need to be on top of your game with some of these people. It is so exhausting. So you can't go to work. When it's unfamiliar situation, that's the same. You know, you come into an area where you don't know the layout of the house. You don't know the people. You know, you don't know the behaviors. You don't know what their abilities are. So it's unfamiliar. It's really hard, and those things can create like situations. Equipment fail. I've had a lifter stand up full hoist, lifter full, press the remote, lifter up, and the lifter's up there. A big old islander boy up there in the air. And he's hanging up there in the air, and the machine wouldn't come down. So I'm standing and trying everything. And I pushed him up above the bed, and I got him above the bed and tried it. And what had happened, I had gone too high. It got stuck there. So I just kept, and then eventually it came down. Thank goodness. I was just about tried changing batteries, and meantime the old boy's hanging up in the air there while we're running around like chicks with our heads. So I'm trying to find these lifter batteries, and this battery's not working. We're all like stressed out and everything. Eventually, it came down. Thank goodness, but. Equipment fails. It does. So, you have to, like, these things do happen and it causes accidents. Instructions or label failing. Sometimes something is wrong and then people don't tag it. You need to put a big red tag on this piece of equipment is broken, and they don't. Oh, it's such a frustration with these lifters because they remotes and the wires, it goes with the wire to the machine, and these remotes and wires got worn out, and I fought with it every day. Just before I left in December, my last few days, they bought new remotes and put it on. I did my nuts so many times over it, and I was like telling everyone, it's my job. I got it done, but in the meantime, it was something that was long-standing already on the issue. But I used to bitch about that so much. Communication problems, obviously, we don't tell each other something, or we forget to tell, or something.
Tell someone something, they say something.
Yeah, and it just, we can play that game right now. We can whisper in each other's ear and see what comes out the other side. It always fails. So unsafe work conditions. So these are things that are risks in every situation, and we need to be aware of that. These things can happen. So abuse, neglect, dangerous habits, impaired judgment, medication risks. Like I said earlier, somebody might have a reverse effect because of wrong medication. And, there can be a situation. Environmental risk, there might be a broken tile or something and they trip over that, or a broken door or something, rail breaks off while you're busy working with them and they fall. Violence, that happens all the time. Types of abuse, we talk about abuse in every single unit. It's physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, financial exploitation, health care fraud, and abuse. Abuse is rough. Yeah, people. That lady last year that went and took the NDIS funding and went playing it out on the pokies, 35,000. That happens all the time. Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of elderly people, people with disabilities whose family are abusing the system. It's there.
Well,
It's
they
rough.
always, when you take the client, they always ask you give them a receipt.
Yeah.
Like,
Accountability is becoming stricter and stricter, but some people still get away with it. And if you do see abuse, we had one old boy, he was living in his own home and he had already dementia. His daughters were abusing him. His one daughter was a drug addict. She was going in there, taking his money. And these neighbors were coming in and phoning on his phone and, helping himself to his things. And eventually he became, went through the, what's it called? Anyway, at the courthouse, you go and you apply for money for them every day to, whatever needs they have.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I keep forgetting that name. Anyway, there's, one of my students in last year's class, she taught me public trustee. One of my other students, she lives out in the sticks somewhere near Prossie, and she has an old boy whose grandson made him sign off his whole farm to him and all his money, and he, yeah, so his house is dilapidated. He's got no power there. He's got no money to pay for his house. He basically now lives with her. But because he signed, he was still within his right mind, and he signed it all over. There's nothing no one can do. And yeah, and this poor old boy has nothing. He's absolutely nothing. His family has ripped him off completely. So I looked after an old boy. He was also a cane farmer, and his neighbor went to the lawyers, and his neighbor got him to sign in as his power of attorney. And because he never got married, he never had a wife or anything, his brother's children down south somewhere, they came visiting. Then this this power of attorney neighbor wouldn't let him see his family from down south because he knew. And when I actually went into his file and I looked at it, when was he diagnosed with dementia and when did he go to the lawyer? And when he went to the lawyer, was like 6 months after he was already diagnosed with dementia. Yeah. So his family could have taken that man to the court. But he died and his family didn't want to argue with him, I think. And actually, his farm is on that highway. So that neighbor got his pockets lined very well with this old boy's farm. Poor old boy. He was the most beautiful man, tall man, snow white hair, beautiful man. Anyway, passed away. Who knows what happens to his stuff. Can't take it with, can you? But still. Yeah, he's sitting nice and smiley. Yeah, he's like on his veranda looking at his cane coats. But anyway. Yeah, he will. I believe that too. Every dog gets his day. Physical abuse, emotional, sexual abuse. Emotional is hard to prove. Sexual abuse, physical abuse is a compulsory report. You make a mandatory report on somebody. If you suspect that, it's like calling the police and saying to them, you suspect the child is being abused. They have to act on it. You need to make a report within 24 hours if you suspect it. And they have to investigate. Report it to your supervisor, fill in the right paperwork, complete the paperwork and identifying a report and additional unmet needs of the person according to organization policies and procedures. Unmet needs that may be there or any other thing that you need to report. Complete the documentation. Make sure you write everything to the right standards. This is so necessary for funding. As I said before, if we write it down, that's where we get our money from. The areas of concern is a big money spinner. You know, it provides that client with enough funding so there's more people to take care of that client. Like with the person with dementia, ideally you should have 2 people caring for 1 person with dementia. You know, in that ideal world, it's like that in Holland. They have this care home there, dementia home, beautiful. I must find a video on that and actually share it on my slides as well. Where they've got like a little shop and yeah, beautiful. And you know the ratio is there 2 carers for each one person with dementia. In Australia, there's no care ratio standard, so you know that's why we are 15. 1 carer for 15 people. But that is changing in this home care environment where we can go and care, where sometimes there's 2 carers for 1 person to maintain this. And the only way that can be done is if we've got enough money to pay the salaries for people and writing down all the care needs. That is where the funding, you know, that's where the government will know that this person has those needs. Just the same and the same, and store them from information correct place, electronic folders. They will all be with password protected, and obviously if you're in somebody's home, you know, it will be in there in a safe place. Okay, so that's the end of this. Let's have a short break. It's 20 to 1. 5-minute break, and then we'll do a few questions. Okay? We'll do a few questions till 1.